Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about the story of Noah and a few lessons that we can learn from it. I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with, how the story goes, probably from childhood. There was a time when God Almighty didn't like what was happening in the world, and he said that he wanted to destroy it, but he would preserve this man named Noah and his family. And so he told him that this was going to happen, and he should build a boat of gopher wood. And Noah went ahead to build this large boat, and then he and his family and some of the animals, they entered into it, and they were saved from what we call the great deluge that happened as a result. But as Paul said in Romans chapter 15 verse 4 and 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 11, all of these stories were preserved for a reason. There's some lesson we're supposed to get out of it that would be relevant to our future as Christians. So what are some lessons we can learn from the story of Noah? In this video, I'm going to be giving you 4 of such lessons. The first lesson we can learn from this story is the fact that righteous people are not really that many. You can see that of all the people living at that time, it was only Noah that God felt was righteous before him. If you read Genesis chapter 7 verse 1. And you can also see that of all the Israelites who were above 20 years old that God delivered from Egyptian bondage, only 2, that is Joshua and Caleb, actually made it to the land. How is it that so few could make it? Well, if you look carefully, you'll see that not many of the Israelites actually knew the fact that there was a God who delivered them and had a vision for them. They just saw this like, oh, there was freedom, and so we took it because, who wouldn't take freedom? So by the time they started experiencing the treachery of the wilderness, the hunger, the thirst, the dehydration, and so on, they began to feel like, what did we even do? Why did we walk into this if there's just gonna end in hunger and thirst and so on? They didn't see that there was a God who brought them out of Egypt and had a plan for them, and that if they just endured like Joshua and Caleb did, they would be able to make it. They didn't see that God. And so they began to take many rash decisions that ended up in them dying in the wilderness and not making it to the land. So it's like people, if they lack knowledge, then they begin to do a lot of those things, which is why Hosea the prophet said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. If you read Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. And that's why when somebody asked Jesus, are there few that be saved? Jesus said, strive to enter in at the straight gate. For many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able. The second lesson we learned from the story of Noah is the fact that many people are not really prepared for when God Almighty comes to do something. You see that at the point that God was going to destroy the world of Noah, people were eating, they were drinking, as Jesus Christ said, they were marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed everybody. Same thing happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. It's because many people, they don't pay attention to the signs. Noah building that boat for 120 years was a huge sign that people were supposed to ask, why is this happening? Why are you spending all these years building this boat? But nobody took it seriously. They felt that Noah was probably deranged or he was just trying to have fun. They didn't really make sense of it all. And you could see that even when Jesus Christ came to the Jews at the time, it was the same thing. People just enjoyed hearing Christ's message, but nobody really took it seriously. Until in AD 70, everything just sort of scattered and the Romans came and destroyed the place and so on. So Jesus Christ was trying to warn them of that and get them to return to God so that that wouldn't happen to them, but they didn't take it seriously, and so that happened. And Jesus Christ said that at the point of his return, that as his king, the same thing would happen. He said his return would be like a thief in the night. If you read Revelation chapter 16 verse 15. Not because he's trying to hide from people necessarily, but because of that lack of preparation and awareness, which is why as Christians we should be watching and praying, closely following the signs. If you read Luke chapter 21 verse 36, so that doesn't happen to us. Then the third lesson we can learn from the story of Noah is the fact that God will always preserve a remnant. Even as he's going to judge a system or judge the world as happened in the days of Noah, he will always preserve a remnant. If you read Joel chapter 2 verse 32, you see Joel the prophet saying that in the last days there would also be a class of people who would be preserved So that even as spirituality would decline, as we're seeing now, right? Many people are losing interest in spirituality. They're losing their faith. There would still be a sect of people who still retain their faith because God Almighty will help them to do so. As it was said, that it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. There are people now who God has anointed to spread the gospel message. As Jeremiah the prophet said, I will send you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. The purpose is so that we as children of God can have access to the truth of his message, so that we can continue to worship him, even as many others in the world begin to lose their spirituality and believe more in science and secularity, as is currently happening. But the final lesson we can learn from the story of Noah is actually having to do with the whole grace and works idea. Because some Christians, they tend to talk about grace like it's absolutely everything, and our righteousness is as filthy rags. If you read Isaiah chapter 64 verse 6, unless we don't really have to do anything. But that's not really the message that the Bible is trying to send. Noah, for example, actually had to build the ark, spend 120 years of his life building that boat. Those were the works that he did in response to the grace. And what was the grace? The grace was that God told him, right? He didn't tell anyone else. He told Noah that this was what was going to happen. There was going to be a flood. So Noah now, based on the grace that God showed to him, he then had works. And it was those works that ended up saving his life and the life of his family. So it's the same for us. The grace that we have as Christians is the fact that we know the truth. We know the truth about Jesus Christ and what God's plan is. So our works are supposed to be that we now respond to that knowledge by doing what's right before him. As if you read Philippians chapter 2 verse 12, Paul said that we should work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. It is our righteousness that will ensure that we have a place in the world to come. If you read Proverbs chapter 10 verse 2, that righteousness delivereth from death, and so on and so forth. So those are a few lessons that I think we can learn from the story of Noah. There are many more that we could perhaps go into in another video. And in fact, we do have another video, How Is Our Time Like Noah's, that kind of discusses the relationship between the days of Noah and our time, the last days. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, then you can check that video out. But I just wanted to kind of open our eyes to a few things that we may or may not have noticed in that story that are relevant to our lives as Christians today. But if you enjoyed this video and learned something new today, then I'd appreciate if you click the like button and also the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified when I come back with another video just like this, then you can click the notification bell. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.